Well, hello to all Brexiteers and freedom fighters. After a long time, for once, we have some good news for you. As I'm filming this tonight, there is a motion going on in Parliament. They're basically about to finalise the vote to basically trigger the general election in December. And earlier today, we got quite nervous and everything was all over the place because the Remainers in Parliament, Labour, the Lib Dems, the SNP were trying to find ways to rig this election in their favour. They were trying to add a number of amendments to this bill, including allowing children to vote in the election. Literally, yes, children. They wanted 16 and 17-year-olds to vote, and they also wanted European citizens who just come and go randomly. They wanted them to also vote, and I'm guessing they also wanted cats and dogs to be able to vote, and they probably wanted Greta Thunberg to have the final say. Fortunately, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, who is potentially going to be replacing John Bercow as the main speaker very soon, rejected all those amendments, and now the government is passing the bill to basically trigger the election, so we are ready to go. Now, after months and months and the last couple of years when the people of this country have lost complete control over their own lives and destiny because Parliament, the Remain Parliament and the establishment decided to take that power away from them, it's now our turn. It's time for us to have our say. And with this election, it's basically the best time for us to make sure that we elect MPs that are going to be supporting Brexit to make sure we actually get this done as soon as possible. Now let's have a look at the bill that the government tabled today. This bill is going through as we speak and for the rest of the night until they pass this. Now the interesting part is that you remember a week or so ago when Boris Johnson said, "This is my Brexit bill, let's debate and vote on it within the next 3 days." Remainers kicked off. They said there's not enough time, whereas they agreed that this bill we could debate and vote on it and also add amendments to have children and Europeans and everyone to vote in 1 day. It could change the whole constitution, everything in 1 day. Luckily they failed. But this is the whole hypocrisy of Remainers, and this is the time to get rid of them. Now, what are we going to be doing during this election? The Brexit Party or the Conservative Party? Now, this channel, as always, remains objective. And I will be supporting Leave candidates regardless of which party, Tory or Brexit, depending on the seat. And the whole point of this channel is going to be focusing on finding the hypocrisy and the flaws in the Remainers campaign, the Labour and the Liberal Democrats, to show the truth about their teams and their parties to the people out there. Because obviously in the mainstream media there's not going to be enough opportunity for them to be exposed. So this is going to be our chance with this channel to make sure that we show their true face to the British public. Now, when it comes to the situation between the Brexit Party and the Conservative Party, it is getting a bit complicated because Farage and Boris, the Brexit Alliance, they say that it would get rid of the Remainers in Parliament. But at the same time, obviously, Richard Tice, the chairman of the Brexit Party, has praised Boris Johnson for trying to deliver Brexit, but pointed out that the Conservatives have failed 3 times to do so. The Brexit Party chairman urged the government to form a Brexiteer alliance with his party as soon as a general election is called. Now, this comes as Boris Johnson looks set to try again for a December general election. I mean, it's a fair point. The issue is, firstly, when the Brexit Party mentioned that the Tories failed 3 times to deliver Brexit and Boris Johnson failed to deliver on his promise, they forget about the fact that it's not really up to the government or the Conservative Party. With this current Parliament, considering it's basically dominated by Remainers, firstly, it would have been impossible to deliver a no-deal Brexit. They were always going to be blocking it, and but then they also decided to go against the deal because the deal wasn't perfect, and obviously, as we said in the previous video, Boris Johnson shouldn't have made those promises if he can't keep it. It's just idiotic. But at the same time, it wasn't really his fault that they blocked his Brexit because he doesn't have a majority. Now, there's a lot of talk on Twitter about this potential Brexit alliance situation and what voters should do. Voting for the Brexit Party in every constituency is the political equivalent of Charge of the Light Brigade. In some Labour seats, it will be right. In Conservative Labour marginals, it will be wrong. We as Leave voters must be sophisticated and recognise the realities of the first-past-the-post system if we are to triumph. This is why, as I said earlier myself on Twitter, the Brexit Party should not need a pact. Just stand in seats where it is actually impossible for the Tories to win and beat Labour there. Standing in Labour-Tory marginals will get Remainers in. This way they get a few MPs in and can have influence over Brexit in Parliament. This whole situation could be problematic for Brexiteers. For example, this tweet that says, "My Tory MP has a 3-figure majority. Brexit Party stand here, and then the popular ex-MP who is Labour is in for certain. Now replicate that in many Conservative marginals." That's why there are a lot of talks and discussions about tactical voting depending on where you live. There are obviously places where it's definitely between Labour and Tory, and there are some places it's definitely between Labour and the Brexit Party. And Leave.eu have a good plan. Leave.eu said that now is not the time for party politics. Be smart. Don't split the vote. Leave.eu, a tactical voting app, is launching soon. Basically, they have come up with a new app to inform Brexit voters to see, depending on which seat they live in, what they should do. The 17.4 million must reunite at the next election to get Brexit and crush the Remainers. If the Brexit Party and the Tories refuse to make a pact, we'll make one for them. So that's the whole thing. Now, obviously, no one can tell you how to vote, and that's the whole point of this. But these sort of ideas, for example, if there's an app that could give you information about your constituency and what are the likelihoods of if you vote for the Brexit Party candidate or a Tory candidate, it would probably be useful. But splitting the vote randomly, just for the sake of tribal voting, whether if you're a Tory or a Brexit Party, if that's going to make Labour or Lib Dem MPs winning, then that's not going to help us, because we're going to be in another limbo. If we have a hung parliament with a coalition of Remainers, the first thing they're going to be doing is get together, revoke Article 50, cancel Brexit, make us remain in the EU, and that's it. It's all done. Now, the Labour politicians are not really smart or, competent. For example, Diane Abbott.
Do you worry by saying that it's not about immigration that you somehow confirm Labour as the middle-class, London-centric, uber-liberal, youth-obsessed party that's handing a P45 to your MPs in the north?
You seem to be reading from a Tory script. I'm telling you that migration is a complex issue and we need to start with the facts. I'm telling you the reason that some parts of the country voted to leave is a complicated question, and we have to listen to them and respect them. But if all you're doing is throwing Tory talking points at me, it's difficult for me to respond.
That came from a Labour member who was in the hall who said that Labour should be worried that's exactly what they're doing.
I think this is going to be my new favourite Diane Abbott interview. But going back to the whole situation with why Brexit didn't actually happen this time round. There's a lot of people who blame Boris Johnson. As I said, he promised, didn't deliver. But what's the reality behind it? For example, this comment that I got on my channel. Tony said, yes, it is Boris Johnson's fault. He could just turn around and say that we are leaving as stated in Article 50. All parties are the same, liars and deceivers all need kicking out. Now, the second part is correct. The first part is not correct, because he couldn't just say we're leaving Article 50 or no deal. As I said earlier, Remain Parliament controls the agenda. It's not the government, it's not Boris Johnson. If you want the government to actually have more power, then you need to vote the Remainers out. That's the whole point of this election. The other comment is this. Dave said, I thought you, Maya, said that we'll get a no-deal Brexit on the 31st of October. I'm starting to not trust you. You're just another Conservative failed candidate pretending to be a Brexiteer. Now, I know I've said this many times, but just to clarify, I'm not part of the Conservative government or the negotiations team. I wasn't sent to Brussels to sort out Brexit. And the whole point of this channel is to report the news and try to analyse it and find the facts as it stands. That's why every time I said we're leaving at the end of October, I said as things stand now. But the problem with this Brexit stuff is that things change every 2 hours. And this is why when the facts change, you have to change your comments. So that's the whole point of this channel, and we have to try to keep up with what's happening. So on the plus side, we have our elections now. Again, unless by the time I finish recording, there's something happens in Parliament and it all gets cancelled. So I'm going to have to do another video tomorrow. But in the meantime, if you want to kind of stay up to date, we're going to be going around the country during this election campaign to all the kind of marginal seats and speak to a lot of Leave voters and Remain voters to see what they think. So it's going to be a kind of a good show for the next few weeks. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel and click on the bell next to it so you get notified when I release a video. Obviously, videos come out every day at 5:45 p.m. And if you want to stay up to date with the Brexit news and everything, you could follow me on Twitter or Instagram, and the details are down there. As always, I'm Tousi, and I'll see you tomorrow with a new video.